Probably 10 years back, it would have been seen as something extraordinary. But now it is not so. We are in a globalized situation. More than that, the complexity and sophistication of businesses are getting to be at a higher level compared to what was the norm in the previous decades. We now find that the businesses, the way of managing businesses, the areas of businesses are all getting more complex and getting more and more involved. And another thing is consulting as such has also been impacted greatly by these changes. We all understand such changes will definitely affect consulting, since consulting is about dealing with businesses. We also have to understand that, especially in India, we had something called liberalization and deregulation of businesses. Anybody has got any idea of what this liberalization and deregulation stands for? Can anyone tell me?
I think liberalization means make free to move across for the business and.
Yes, I will extend that. What he has said is perfectly right, but it needs some additions also. Prior to 1991, 92 is considered to be a landmark year in the history of India now. The reason is very simple. Before that, we were living in a license permit Raj. That is, for doing business, you needed to have license, and you usually produced things only according to the limit set in the licenses, which was given by the government. And you had to take certain kinds of permits. Only then you were allowed to function. And if you fall foul of any of the conditions under which these permits were given, you faced problems in your business. So just imagine, unless you had permission to produce more, even if you had production capacity, you could not utilize it. And if you produced more somehow, you could not sell it to whomsoever you like. Probably somebody abroad may want the product, but you couldn't, because the government will not permit you unless you had the the permit. So this was what was the case in the prior to 1990s. In the early 1990s, India was faced with a very severe economic crisis. We had very low reserves for backing up our international trade. And so the option before the finance minister and the prime minister at that time were actually very drastic. You had to open up the economy. Till then, India was considered to be a closed economy. So with that opening up, what really happened was that trade could move without borders, or more like you were accelerating trade investments. You were permitting trade to expand, businesses to expand without constraining them through such licenses, permits, etc. So that was the market liberalization which happened in India. Then deregulation also saw that many governmental institutions which were actually controlling business of Indian businesses linked to transnational entities. The role of such institutions were much reduced. But when you reduce the involvement of such government institutions, you also have to protect the consumers and the stakeholders. For that, some of the other authorities were established. different regulatory agencies were established. That is the deregulation. Now, how is this affecting consulting? This is about a very simple view of deregulation and liberalization. It has affected consulting a lot because now an Indian business, probably situated in Cochin, can very well call in any consultant, whether it is abroad or in India, it doesn't matter. Earlier, it was not so easy. So consultants were also in a way a bit protected. Not that everybody was. In specialized areas, you had to access consultants from abroad, but you face a lot of constraints, including foreign exchange regulations, foreign exchange stipulations regarding the expenditure, etc. So, with the market liberalization and deregulation, you face a lot of competition. But the positive side was that you could now offer your services outside India very easily. It was the positive side. And many of the consultants from India actually blossomed into transnational consulting entities after this. Now, another changing concept which we recognize as we pan through the years is that consultants have now started to look into different areas of organizations like marketing, operations, legal, purchase, or whatever, against the background of market liberalization and deregulation, about increased competition. So, this background has shifted considerably when you compare to the 1990s or early 1980s or whatever prior to that. And after 2000, the way in which consultants have been looking at these areas have drastically changed. Now, more or less, we are at a globalized situation where the restrictive practices which were protecting organizations earlier have no hold, so that business organizations are now facing increased competition, increased pressures of performing well, and consultants also have had to change the ways in which they were advising firms. I am focusing more on the Indian experience here. Globally, also, you will see that since the beginning of the 1990s, many countries had moved into liberalized economies. Those developing nations which were closed to external agencies had opened up their economies, which again opened new avenues for consultancies across the globe. Many consulting firms have now come into being. Earlier, a few consulting firms like McKinsey, EY, KPMG, Deloitte were holding sway, but now if you look at the net, you will find that there are a lot more. Not only that, the smaller ones are also doing very well. So that has happened because of the changes in the economic situation all over the world. But we should also take note that recently there have been changes in the political scenario and in the global economic scenario where countries are now focusing more and more on their internal resources. For example, US under earlier President Trump were actually consolidating their own resources. They didn't want outsiders to come in and take away jobs or take away the opportunities. That was the view the then president held, and that was really propagated. So we had certain restrictions being placed in certain areas. Not that consultancies have been much affected, but still. And we also know about the trade war with China. So such things, political things, also impact the way we do business, even if it is consulting. We cannot get insulated from such happenings around the world. Now, the pressures of converting consulting into a one-stop solution is very high in this modern age. Can somebody tell me what it means? What do you mean by the pressures of converting consulting into a one-stop solution is very high in this modern age? What do you mean by that?
So a problem has multiple dimensions. So summarizing it into a single solution is we have to consider dimensions of them.
Okay. Anything to add to that? Anybody else? Okay. The different perspectives of a problem is something we all know. Further to that, now the way clients see consulting is as a one-stop solution means you give the consultant a problem. You want the consultant to come out with a solution, not just the advice part, some kind of solution package probably, and you really get the solution for your problem and you solve the problem with the help of the consultant all at one go. Earlier, this was not the norm. Many organizations, you should keep in mind that right from the 1900s, we had a lot of consulting happening around the world, especially in US and Europe. But at that time, it was more like advising the business organizations as to what to do, where to proceed, how to do it, etc. The implementation part, the nitty-gritties of it were looked into by the organizations themselves. So the consultant was more of an advisor. The role was more of advisory. But now people are asking for more. So the pressures of offering organizations or clients more is really high on consultancies nowadays. People come to you with their problems. Probably the problem they are stating may not be the actual problem, as you have pointed out earlier. It may be just one dimension of the problem. When you tackle it in real world, you will find that other things also come into play. But the client wants you to actually attend to whatever is associated with the problem they have proposed. They want it solved as a comprehensive solution to be developed to tackle all their problems. Although they won't be giving you too much money to do all this, they will all have their own restrictive business practices, competitive business practices. But as a consultant, that is what you are supposed to give these organizations. Okay. And many business leaders prefer a single point contact for problems to reduce the response time to problems. So this is again one important point. Now time is of very high importance for all organizations. How fast you react actually decide whether you are in the business for long or you get out of the business fast. So this time, actually the element of response time is very important for consultancies also. Probably you can come up with very detailed solutions which can take years to implement. In such a case, the clients will look for something else. Probably they may even change consultants. Because you don't have all the time in the world to react to situations nowadays. Unless you react very fast, opportunities which may be available for your business may not exist by the time you come up with the solutions. A typical example is let us think about a small firm manufacturing, say, FMCGs, asking you in as a consultant to solve their marketing problem on the ground or their operations problem regarding their production decreases which has happened due to the pandemic. Now, if you come up with a detailed solution with a detailed plan, which takes 2 years to complete, the business may not even exist by that time if they don't react to the situation now. Because the situation is a very drastic one, which requires immediate attention for businesses to function continuously. So you cannot actually limit your solutions to certain time periods. You have to do it fast, you have to do it properly. That is the requirement nowadays. So when you think about that, you will understand the requirement of many business leaders for single point contacts. That is, they want just one organization to get involved in their problem, whom they have retained as consultant. And they want that particular organization or the particular person advising them to be the single point contact. They want to get everything out of them. Probably you will feel that this is too much, but that is the way things are moving now. Okay. Now, you would all have heard of IBM, I hope. Is there anybody who has not heard of IBM? ഈ ഗ്രൂപ്പിൽ ആരെങ്കിലും IBM എന്നുള്ള വാക്ക് കേൾക്കാത്തവരുണ്ടോ? Anybody? Are you all there? Or is it just me? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yes, sir. Fatima, you have heard of IBM? Fatima NA.
Yes, sir.
Yes. So what is that IBM standing for? The acronym?
International Business
International Machines. Good. Thank you. Okay. Fawzia?
Yes, sir.
What is it that IBM is doing now?
It's on the hardware, software, something.
Something. Okay. Nilofer, you are there?
Yes, sir.
Any idea what IBM is doing today?
Hardware, software, development. Not sure.
Not sure. Hashim?
Yes, sir.
Can you elaborate on that?
Not sure, sir. Computer manufacturing.
Computer manufacturing. Tanmay?
Yes, sir.
What is it that IBM is doing nowadays?
Helping build smart business.
They are helping businesses. In which way?
In technology.
Are they manufacturing computers now?
They also manufacture computers and also help business.
Okay. Anyone? Thank you, Tanmay. Anybody who wants to add to that? Anyone?
Sir, IBM is doing management consulting, and they are more concentrating on cloud platforms now. Even
yes.
we are using IBM Watson for one of our product as a.
What is Watson? You can just.
Yeah, it's a AI-based cloud platform. It's a customer engagement platform, and we can we can chat with a chatbot by using the artificial intelligence Watson platform, and we have integrated one of our product called Purple Grid with the IBM Watson. The backend is Watson, and the customers may be able to chat with that chatbot. That intelligence is provided by Watson. It's a based
Okay.
chatbot. Yeah.
Okay. That is a product they have.
Yes.
So primarily, you are saying that IBM is actually not into computer manufacturing now. Am I right?
Yeah.
Right. Thank you, Manu.
So.
Thank you for mentioning about the cloud services. I actually wanted to mention that later. Okay. Now, you will understand one thing. IBM, for example, when I was doing my engineering some way back in the 1990s, early 1990s, uh, IBM stood for International Business Machines. That the kind of machines they were supplying were the PCs at the low end and the large mainframes. You had IBM mainframes at the business organization level, at the highest end. They were one of the leaders in the game. Actually, we had to learn based on IBM architecture. Our computer courses were built around IBM architecture. We even had one textbook called IBM PZ80, which was the most popular platform at that time and considered to be very advanced at that time. 80 stands for Advanced Technology. Okay, then the IBM understood that technology is not just about making computers, it goes much beyond that. And they were facing a lot of problems when new entrants came into the picture and the PC sales started declining. Mind you, declining, not that they were a small company. IBM had revenues in the $1 billion range even at that time. So at that time, IBM did a rethink. And another thing you should keep in mind is IBM's technology center, IBM Thomas J. Watson Technology Center at Schenectady. That was one of the biggest research centers where you had so many Nobel Prize winners at work. So it is not that it is a small company which is restricting just to manufacturing or something. Now, what they did was they took a perspective view of their business, and one of the arms which they found was growing was IT consulting, as you just uh, mentioned. Manu was mentioning that. They found that their services wing was actually growing fast compared to the hardware side, where you were facing a lot of constraints, a lot of competition. The competition was actually breakneck competition. The prices were being squeezed like anything. You didn't have much margin. All these things were coming into play. And there, around the end of 1990s, IBM was not sure what to do with their hardware business. So what they did, the management did was they started developing their business consulting arm into the biggest business sector, and they sold. Just imagine, they sold their whole hardware portfolio except certain specialized segments where IBM was still the leader. They still supply certain hardware. But other than that, they exited out of the PC business altogether. You won't find an IBM PC now, although that was the defining word for IBM just 15 years back or 20 years back. So what they found was consulting, especially IT consulting, was an area which was booming, which would boom further. Now, if you look at IBM revenues, you will get really convinced why that step was very, very lucky for IBM, not just for IBM. As IBM had very good strength in these areas, they delivered some very good projects which further built their reputation. And they have actually come out with more and more solutions for business concerns based on their expertise, that is computing. It is not computers, it is computing now for them. So they are offering the kind of platforms Manu was speaking about, that is artificial intelligence based on Watson. Watson was there quite some time back also, but it was considered to be very extremely high end. But now people don't even think about it. You have Watson at the back end for many good applications, but people don't go all the way behind that. Why I am focusing on this is you should understand that consulting is an area which is coming up like anything, and consulting is an area which is continuously undergoing changes. That is another thing which we always have to keep in mind. Why I am particularly highlighting IBM is the similarity with in the situations at what IBM was facing and the similarity in the situation we are facing now. Now everything is being under pressure for digital transformation. So you can imagine the kind of opportunities that are shaping up for IT consulting in all areas. It is not just about IT consulting. In every area of business, you will find that consultants are required to play big roles in converting business processes across the board into the new business environment. People are not even clear about how all this will be happening. So it is for the consulting organizations to play a big role in shaping up the area, so to say. Okay, now keeping in mind that you should take note that IBM, which was a typical IT plus a small business consulting arm, is now one of the biggest IT consulting firms in the business, and their hardware side business is very, very, very low considering the IT consulting business. Now, another changed concept which we should understand is the increasing commoditization of offerings by consulting firms. Large consulting firms are increasingly offering products. You will be somewhat puzzled by this because normally we see services as services. We don't normally see it as a product. But if you go to the site for any of the Big Four or any good consulting organization, you will find that they have got product packages. So what is it that they are producing? It is not that they are producing some physical thing, but they are coming out with packages of productized, or the right term is commoditized offerings. That is, they are packaging their services as product packages. The advantages are many because of the large exposure, because of the large clientele or the client base. The consulting firms are understanding that there is a commonality across the board for many clients. That is, most of the clients will have certain basic necessities to be fulfilled by the consultant, especially if the consultant is having very good idea about the particular area in which they are specializing in. They can develop certain kinds of services which can be offered just as equivalent to a product being offered. That is, there is a kind of a ready-made solution available. You should not take it in the full literal sense. Please be reminded that there will be certain changes required for clients, but still the common base will be much, much more rather than the differences. What I can give you as an example is, suppose you are an HR consultant and you actually help companies to digitize their employee records, digitize the employee engagement methods, etc. Now you will find that if you are having good experience in this particular field, whether the organization is a small or medium organization or whether it is a very large industrial organization, the functionalities which you need to provide or which you need to advise the client to implement are more or less same. ഇപ്പോൾ നമ്മൾ ഒരു ചെറിയ ഫേമിലാണെങ്കിലും വളരെ വലിയ ഫേമിലാണെങ്കിലും പലപ്പോഴും ഫങ്ഷണൽ നീഡ്സ് സെയിം തന്നെയായിരിക്കും. Only thing is the scope will be much bigger in the larger firm. So what you can now do is you can give your services as a kind of product package where they get something standard. For example, you can have, say, product package P1, where you will tell the client who is purchasing that package that they will get 2 visits per week from your organization, and your people will be looking at how their IT implementation is tracking digitalization initiatives, and you will also add in to the package some more milestones whereby the client can check whether you are delivering the right things and whether they are getting the right things. So this is one way of packaging your services. So without looking at the client in detail, you have some standard packages available. But when you go to the client, the customization also may be there to a limited extent. You will again in your contract list out if product package P1 is the linkage, what kind of customization is possible. If you are moving to another kind of package, say P2, probably the client may get more visits, more kind of customization, etc. So this is called commoditizing, because it is just like a commodity. You're selling something like in a commodity way, means you are buying something in a package fashion. Okay, so that kind of knowledge product packaging is happening across consulting. You will find this practiced in a big way by ERP consulting firms, BPR firms, etc., consulting firms, etc. Any questions on this? Commoditization? Any doubts? Okay. Swati, what did you understand by commoditization?
Not all the clients require the same services from the consultant.
Don't put it that way. Not all the clients, many clients, let us say.
Many clients. Sorry, sir.
Because in the first module, we highlighted how each problem is peculiar. We should not forget that.
Sorry, sir?
In the first part, we were highlighting that each problem is different, no? When we discussed
yes.
about breakthrough thinking and all. And here we are saying that commoditization is possible. So probably you may feel that both are quite opposite, but as with business, we have to find some kind of middle world. Okay, please proceed.
Then the consultant should be tailor-made, like what the client is actually what the client actually needs. The consultant should be provided with that.
Consultant should be providing that, but commoditization means you are trying to come out with some common kind of product packages, service packages.
Yes, sir.
Okay. The basic assumption is that most of the clients will have similar needs, especially if we are in the same business segment. That is one reason why commoditization is being taken up in a large way. Okay, Swati.
Yes, sir. Thanks.
Anybody else? Commoditization, you should understand properly in the right perspective. You should not mix up all the things together. We were saying that clients need specialized, customized ways in which their problems can be solved. We were also highlighting that each problem is different. But with all this, the changing business world is forcing consulting to redefine the way in which these things are being looked into. And one way in which consulting firms are responding to the dynamic changes is by standardizing their offerings. This kind of standardization allows them to offer such packaged services just like commodities. For example, if you want to buy a bathing soap, you don't really go to somebody and say that I want this much quantity of soap. You just go to a shop, buy whatever is your preference. That is a packaged commodity which is readily available. So, on one side, consultancies are trying to emulate such commodities by offering standardized packages. But we should also understand it is not easily done for all kinds of businesses. For example, in IT consulting, if you consider, say, computerization of one particular organization, probably a consulting firm can give a kind of commoditized package whereby the consultant will be supplying the blueprints for the basic computerization plan, the computer network with the terminals, etc., etc., software, what kind of things are. And you will find that most of the organizations will be having similar needs. But at the next level, probably if the client is a bank, the kind of computerization they require will be different from the way a business organization is going to deal with computerization. The functionalities at the higher end may be quite different. So there, you may not be able to offer them the same package which was offered for all kinds of clients. So there, you will have to come up with some kind of customized ways of looking at it. So don't think that it is very easy to do commoditization in consulting, although people are trying to come up with new and new ways in which such things can be established. The advantage for consulting, we will see what is advantage in offering such commoditized offerings. Okay. One adverse, we will stop with this today. One adverse effect of commoditization is a problem of non-uniqueness of solution. And this is exactly the problem we were highlighting when we were discussing about problem solving. Each problem is usually unique. So even if you have organization A, organization B, organization C coming to you for, say, computerization of their operations, the needs may be slightly different for all the three, even if they are in the same industry. Their sizes may be different, the kind of people they employ may be different, which all impacts the way your solution has to work in these situations. But if you are offering commoditized solutions, you will have a package whereby you say, okay, this is the kind of thing you are supposed to do. You should have such and such number of terminals looking at the business level, and these terminals should have such and such software, etc. But you are not customizing these if you are offering only the particular packaged or commoditized solution. So you will tell the client, if you want more kind of customization, you should go for separate customized packages from us. So you are now trying to move out of the commoditization regime. The advantage in commoditization for the consulting agency is that they can package each offering very neatly. And not only that, they will also have clear-cut ideas of what every client is really being supplied with. The client also, in a way, understands what is it that they get. But the problem of non-uniqueness, the solution you are implementing may be the same thing if it is the same consultant elsewhere at the other organization B. Okay. And what will happen if this is taken up in a very large way? You will actually lose your competitive advantages in comparison with other competitors in your area. Okay. And the next point we have to keep in mind is about outsourcing. Now, outsourcing has been a real game changer for consulting and consultants. As we face uncertain times, business profitability is being squeezed like anything. And there is a very large market out there which looks at ways in which a business can cut down on its overheads. Other than the basic functions which gives it revenue, almost all businesses are looking at ways in which the non-revenue earning parts of the business can be reduced in size, can be excluded from its operations, can be cut back, etc., etc. Because it is not giving any value for the business. But it may be slightly important to have certain areas also. So that is the area where outsourcing is playing a big role. So even technical fields are also facing this kind of pressure, and in consulting also we are facing the same kind of pressure. Okay, any questions on this? Farsina? Farsina, you are there?
Yes, sir.
Have you heard of the word outsourcing earlier?
No, sir.
No. Okay. What about Akshaya? You have heard of the word outsourcing?
No, sir.
What have you understood about that at that time?
Change for consulting and consult. I'm not sure,
No.
sir.
I'm asking about outsourcing, the word outsourcing, not about consulting.
From outside sources.
Okay. Okay. I would
Getting
like it to be.
assistance from outside sources.
For example, suppose an organization is employing their own housekeeping staff, then it is not outsourced. But if they are employing an outside agency to supply the housekeeping staff, they are actually outsourcing. Am I right? So you should first understand the idea of outsourcing and the way in which outsourcing has played a big role in consulting is what we will discuss next. Right now, let me take your attendance. ആരും വീഡിയോ ഒന്നും ഇട്ടില്ല അല്ലേ? ദിവസം പറയണം അറ്റൻഡൻസ് എന്ന് പറയുമ്പം. Please continue online. My net connection is having a lot of problems nowadays. Okay, I will just call out your names. Today also there are a number of absentees. So in the next class, I hope everyone will be available, because if you are not there, you will be losing marks. The presentation is a marked assignment. So please convey to your friends also that if they are deliberately absent, they will be missing out on the marks part 2, even if their name figures on the team list. Manu, please take note. Please convey this message. Okay, Aditya?
Present, sir.
Akhila?
Present, sir.
Akshaya?
Present, sir. Present, sir.
Ashna?
Present, sir.
Ashwin?
Present, sir.
Ashwati C?
Present, sir.
Ashwati yes?
Present, sir.
Fazina?
Present, sir.
Fatima?
Present, sir.
Fatima?
Present, sir.
Fauzia?
Present, sir.
Hadia?
Present, sir.
Rishad,
Present, sir.
John,
Present, sir.
Vinu, Mufita,
Present, sir.
Faiz,
Present, sir.
Hashim,
Present, sir.
Nilo,
Present, sir.
Swati,
Present, sir.
Tanmay,
Present, sir.
Leslie,
Present, sir.
Yasir.
Present, sir.
Okay. So all of you, please take note. In our next class today afternoon, I will not be taking any class. But in our next class, you should remember to get prepared for the presentation. It's a small thing actually, so you should be able to do it easily. And more than that, all of you should be there. So even if only 1 or 2 persons are actually presenting the slides, I'll be asking questions to all others in the team. So please keep that in mind.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay, sir.
Okay, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.